The arena smelled of burned ozone and old blood. It was carved into the belly of the sovereign conclave, a station so vast it blotted out 2 moons when it drifted through the Varith system. Here, the 17 dominant species of the Galactic Accord settled their disputes the old way, by sending their finest into the Circle of Judgment, where the floor was black obsidian and the walls were lined with the sigils of every species that had ever bled there. Humans were the newest sigil. It was also the smallest. The Conclave had not expected much from them. That was their first mistake. Commander Jack Reyes stood at the entrance tunnel, rolling his left shoulder in slow circles, feeling the familiar pop of the joint that had been dislocated twice, once in the Mars colony riots, once in the Kepler station siege. He wore no armor beyond a lightweight combat suit woven from reactive polymer fiber. No helmet, no shield emitter, nothing ceremonial, just the suit, a short blade at his hip, and the calm expression of a man checking items off a grocery list. "You understand," said Admiral Thessa of the Varith delegation, her 4 eyes blinking in sequential pairs, "that Gron the Unbroken has never lost a circle engagement. Not once in 40 years of service." "Yeah," Jack said. "You mentioned that. He has killed 37 challengers." 37. 37, Thessa repeated, as if the number might finally land with appropriate weight. Jack nodded slowly. "Okay, good to know." Thessa stared at him. Her lateral gills fluttered, the Varith equivalent of profound confusion. "You show no fear." Jack looked at her then, genuinely curious. Would it help if I did? She had no answer for that. In the observation bay 1 level up, Lieutenant Emmachin leaned against the railing with her arms crossed, watching the arena floor below. She was the mission's tactical officer and, by most measures, the most dangerous person aboard the Sovereign Conclave, though she would never say so herself, which was, as Jack had once noted, precisely what made it true. Around her, dozens of alien delegates murmured in their respective tongues. Skepticism hummed through the air like a frequency. A Drell noble, tall as a doorframe with gray-blue skin stretched over a skeletal frame, sidled up beside her. His name was Counselor Marin, and he had the particular manner of someone accustomed to being the smartest creature in any room. "Your commander will not survive," he said. Not cruelly, just as a statement of fact, the way one might comment on weather. Gron's blade is forged from Keth steel. It vibrates at a frequency that disrupts neural tissue on contact. Even a glancing blow causes full-body paralysis. Emma didn't look at him. She was watching Jack stretch his neck. "Fascinating," she said. "You are not concerned?" "I'm always concerned," she replied. "That's different from scared." Marin tilted his head. "The distinction escapes me." "It would," Emma said pleasantly. Gron the Unbroken entered the circle from the opposite tunnel, and the arena shuddered with the sound of 6,000 spectators responding in their own cultural idioms, from the clicking of the Sorn to the chest resonance drone of the Hulkai. He was enormous by any standard, 3 meters tall, a species called the Daven, built like a siege engine wrapped in dark bronze chitin armor. His blade, the Keth blade Marin had described, was nearly as long as Jack was tall. It hummed faintly, visibly vibrating, a sound just below hearing that made the teeth itch. He looked at Jack the way one looks at a pebble in a shoe. "I am Grond," he said, his translator implant rendering the words in flat standard. 40 years. 37 kills. No human has ever entered this circle. Jack rolled his shoulder one more time. "First time for everything. No human can survive my blade." Grond raised it, and the hum rose with it, a frequency that made several nearby spectators visibly wince. "Yield now, and I will grant you death without pain. It is more than you deserve." Jack tilted his head. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped closer. Not away, not to the side. Forward, closing the gap by 2 full strides. Now standing within the shadow of the Daven warrior, close enough that the blade's hum was a physical pressure against his skin. He looked up at Grond. "Try again," Jack said. The silence lasted almost 4 full seconds. Then Grond swung. The blade came in a horizontal arc that should have taken Jack's head clean off his shoulders. But Jack was already inside the swing, already moving before the arc completed, ducking below the path of the blade, and stepping in against Grond's forearm, redirecting the momentum rather than fighting it. He used the Daven's own mass against him, leveraging the follow-through of the swing so that Grond stumbled forward half a step. Not much, just enough. Jack's elbow found the joint of the chitin at the inner wrist. Once. Hard. The keth blade clattered on the obsidian floor. The arena went completely silent. Grand recovered quickly. These were not empty years of experience. He spun, slammed a massive fist downward. Jack sidestepped and took the glancing edge of the blow on his upper arm. It was enough to spin him, enough to make him grunt, but he rolled with it, came up 3 meters away, already repositioning. In the observation bay, Counselor Marin turned to Emma with something new in his expression. How? We don't fight to win, Emma said quietly, watching Jack circle. We fight to survive long enough to find a way to win. There's a difference. That is a remarkably grim philosophy. It's the honest one. The fight lasted 11 minutes. Later, analysts would review the footage and isolate 17 distinct moments where, by every metric of physical advantage, Grand should have ended it. 17 moments where mass, reach, armor, and weapon superiority should have been decisive. Each time, Jack found the angle that didn't exist, the half-second gap between force and follow-through, the microsecond of committed weight that opened a joint, a nerve cluster, a pressure point. He had studied Davan physiology for 6 weeks before this mission. He knew where the chitin thinned. He knew where the nervous system ran close to the surface. He knew that the species, for all their power, had a vestibular system that was slightly vulnerable to rapid directional change. Not much, just a degree of disorientation that lasted less than a second. A second was enough. He didn't win by being stronger. He didn't win by being faster. He won by refusing to be where Grand expected him to be, and by outlasting the Davan certainty. When Grand finally went to one knee, not from a single blow, but from the accumulation of 11 minutes of precisely placed strikes that had slowly, methodically degraded his ability to generate power, the arena was still silent. Jack stood 3 meters away, breathing hard, blood on his lip from the one shot that had connected fully. He was looking at Grand with something that wasn't contempt, wasn't triumph. It looked almost like respect. You're good, Jack said honestly. Best I've faced. But I've been hit before. A lot. And I kept getting up. He paused. Humans are stubborn like that. Grand stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, his chitin-armored hand touched the obsidian floor. The gesture of formal surrender in Davan culture and in circle law. The arena erupted. Emma was already moving toward the tunnel when the sound hit. She wasn't cheering. She was calculating next steps, reviewing the political implications, running through the follow-up briefings that would be needed. But she was smiling. Just slightly. Just enough. Counselor Marin appeared at her side as she walked. I owe you an apology, he said carefully. You don't, Emma replied. You made a reasonable assessment based on available data. The data was incomplete. It usually is, she agreed. When it comes to us. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted, less patronizing, more genuinely curious. What are humans exactly? By our classifications, you are a mid-tier species. Short-lived, physically unimpressive, limited sensory range. No natural armor, no venom, no regenerative capacity. And yet, Emma stopped walking. She turned and looked at Marin fully, and something in her expression made the counselor go very still. We're the species, she said quietly, that looked at a universe full of things that could kill us, and decided the correct response was to learn everything about them. She held his gaze. We're not the strongest. We know that. We're not the fastest. We know that too. A beat. We're the ones who showed up anyway. She let that sit. Then she turned back toward the tunnel where Jack was walking out, bloody and steady, already nodding at the medical team with the air of someone who had things to do after this. Counselor Marin watched her go. He stood in the empty corridor for a very long time after that. The Sovereign Conclave updated its registry that day. The human sigil, the smallest on the wall, was moved. Not to the center. Humans hadn't earned that yet, and they were practical enough to know it. But it was no longer at the edge. It was exactly where it needed to be. For now.